leaders. We're going to have candid conversations. We're going to learn from their experience and hopefully get some really valuable morsels out of this series. So the reason why I've put this together is I have been in the industry for 20 years. I've been working with fabulous people. I've met some extraordinary leaders. I've helped build some extraordinary teams, and I really wanted to bring some of the knowledge and experience that I have come across to as many people as possible. So I've chosen LinkedIn Live to do this. I hope this forum works for everybody, and I will be here at 11:30 every Thursday until I run out of leaders to talk to, and I hope it's helpful for you. I've just put together this very short video to launch us each week so that people can see us go live, they can jump on board, and they know we're here. So bear with me, we will be going live at 11:30 as promised. So why is this important? This is important because it's to be good at what you do. It's really important to model good people. So if you want to be the best, model the best. And I have worked with so many wonderful leaders and helped them build teams. I've seen some really fabulous leadership styles. I've seen people who've developed over time as leaders, and the fastest way to do that is to, yes, there's theory, but let's move away from theory a little bit and let's look at what really happens in these roles for these people, and let's learn from the mistakes that some of the leaders have made. So I suppose I'm bringing mentors to the table through the experience that I have and the people who I have met over the years. So hopefully it's inspiring to you. Hopefully it's a place where you will gain some valuable information. Even if you pick up one thing from the conversation we're having each week, then that will be enough for me to feel as if I've brought you value. So I really do hope that you receive value from this. What I would love from you is if you can let us know you're here. Obviously we're live on LinkedIn. We would love interaction from you to know that you're here, you're listening. Let us know if there's something that comes up for you that resonates with you, something that you want to ask. The aim will be 20 minutes of conversation and then 5 to 10 minutes of Q&A, depending on how we end up. So hopefully that works for you all. As I say, please interact with us, engage. And if you would like a transcript of this session, I'm going to share transcripts with people who come to me and ask for them, and I will also put together a document which will be all of the key takeouts, the key learnings that we've received from each session. So I'll also be able to share that with you if you pop a comment in at the end of the conversation. So really excited to be here once again. Let's get on with it. I will see you on the other side.
Good morning. Hi, everybody. I think we've got a few people already on board on LinkedIn, so thank you for joining us. And I'm sure others will be joining as we're speaking. Good morning, Merle. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, and thank you for having me, and welcome to everybody who's online and coming online.
Wonderful. Now, I'm going to give a quick intro. So I'm just going to talk through a little bit about your background and let people know who you are and what you've done and set the frame for our conversation today. So Merle has been a leader, multi-disciplinary leader across the IT sector, mainly, I believe, for the last 25 years. And she's covered everything from marketing, communications, stakeholder management, people, culture, change, transformation, and across various countries and regions as well. So has had some great experience in the IT technology world. And Merle has a real passion for culture and for change, and has really delved into, through a research study she's been doing with Deakin University, the focus has been on intergenerational leadership, and that the narrative around that, especially as leaders navigate this digital world, and obviously there's some fairly heavy events going on at the moment around us as well. So exciting times to be doing a research project like this. And so I think Mel is going to share with us some of her insights and experiences and some of the findings that have sort of come up from that. So now we would love you to get involved in the conversation. If you have questions or comments, please do engage with us. The comments are not coming up just yet, but if anyone is there, if you could just put a comment in for me so that I can see it's all working. Where are you from? Just say hi, just so that I know you're there. All right. So that being done, that was a big intro. I'd love you to just tell me what have been the real highlights for you, Merle, from your career in leadership, and how did you sort of find yourself in doing what you're doing now?
So that's a really long piece, and I'm going to try to distill it for you because it's certainly something that I've thought about. How did I get to do a research project? I have been gifted, I think, in my corporate career to have worked with some really extraordinary leaders, and I think one of the leaders is actually on the call today. And for me, what has stood out from the leadership is a level of generosity and a level of kindness, a level of human capability. So this isn't really about their capability, which has a big tick, or their skills or their commercial nous, but it's actually who they are as human beings. And the truth is, I have 100 years ago, I always say it was when dinosaurs roamed the earth, I did my master's in psych, and I never practiced. But I have always been incredibly fascinated by the human condition. And I think that the tapestry of the human condition in corporate life is an amazing thing, and good and bad, functional and not so functional. And I was fortunate enough, and I think actually one of my clients is on the call as well, to be asked by a client in a large technology business to work with and mentor a group of young, predominantly female grads and interns. And I remember walking in on that first day and sitting down around a round table with these young, as I say, predominantly young women, and being amazed at talent, skill, capability, but also their level of collaboration, their level of humanness. And so I kind of came out of that and I thought, we spend all of this time talking about millennials as the me generation, the entitled generation. And I thought, this is not my experience of nieces and nephews and other people's kids. And I thought, no, there must be something more. The issue is I'm far away from being a millennial. So how am I part of the conversation? And that's really what got me thinking about an intergenerational view. And the more that I delved into it, the more I realized actually there sits the power for organizations about really figuring that out. And so I can be easy instant, I have to say. I thought, I'll do a research project. And I didn't really know what that would mean. But 2.5 years ago, I started on this fairly lengthy piece of research, which is we're still working on, looking at the intergenerational leadership narratives that we tell ourselves, the leadership narratives when we look externally at leaders, and how is this playing out? Digital disruption and a volatile world, and no more volatile than this year. So it's really been a calling. Rebecca, it might sound a little overstated, but it does. It feels vocational.
Yeah, no, that's very, very exciting, and what a great time to be looking at it. And I love what you say about the human condition, because this is something that I think sometimes is don't know, forgotten, but it's sometimes missed, is that we are all humans. You know, we may be leaders, we may be, you know, nurses, doctors. Every single one of us is a human, and so underlying everything that we do is the human condition and human behaviours and drivers and, you know, all of those things. And it's such a powerful thing. And it's almost like sometimes I feel like leaders feel like they need to turn it off. Not, you know, many leaders don't, but sometimes it's sort of, you've got to turn off that human and be something different. And I might be being extreme, but yeah, it intrigues me as well in terms of that. How have you framed the research? So how have you gone about it, and what do you mean by intergenerational leadership and your perspective?
Yeah. So we started off with 2 phases, which have actually ended up being 3 and possibly 4. The first phase, I was really interested in looking at it from a female perspective, because I'd been a senior woman, and that was really the starting point, that I could talk to it or imagine it or walk in the shoes. So it was looking at senior women, and that was women who had been in business and were still in business for at least 20 years.
Right.
I looked at millennials, a kind of abbreviated version of millennials, but you had to have had a minimum of 5 years in corporate life and were probably in the age range of like 24 to 30, 31. Women only, and in Australia. When we launched that, I was asked, rightly so, by a lot of young men, why are you not looking at millennial men? So phase 2 began, millennial men, also in Australia. The phase 3 is senior women, millennial men and women in the US. And all of the phases include a in-depth interview. So it's anything from an hour. Some of them actually ran about 2 hours. And there is an assessment before. I won't go through the assessment because that's an hour in the making, but there was an assessment, a debrief, and then what's called, I didn't know this, it's called inductive research. So you don't have a hypothesis. You let the research, you let the conversation define what you are researching.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so what was the reason why you chose females in the initial phase?
Well, I'm a woman, and actually most of the young folk that I'd worked with were young women. And I think that there is, you know, I always think words have such power, and many of the words we use in corporate life lose their power. Diversity and inclusion, authenticity, words that are super powerful, but they've been either overused or underappreciated. And so for me, it was a real moment of what can a changing face of leadership look like. And I took the step just because I knew one part, and I had a real flavor and feeling for the other part, the millennial women.
Okay. And I mean, hey, I've got so many questions about because there is a real perspective or a perception of millennials, and I feel like they're fairly hard done by. And I think, like you started to say before, you know, it is an opportunity for us to embrace moving forward as opposed to fighting. At the end of the day, these are the people who are going to be running the countries. These are the people who are going to be, you know, having the children, raising the children, all of the things that we're doing now. So, and things have changed so much in terms of how we learn and how we engage and all of those things. What do we know, really? I mean, because we haven't done it before. So I'd be interested to know, I mean, what have you found so far in terms of the differences and probably more so the opportunities around embracing millennials and just the younger generation in leadership?
So if you don't mind, Rebecca, I might reframe that for me, so I can kind of share it in terms of what my thinking is. I think this is an intergenerational piece, and rather than us doing or bestowing something on millennials, which I don't think it is, I think it's that real reframing for everybody. So we've got baby boomers still in corporate life, obviously Gen Xers, millennials, and we've got Zoomers coming in, which is the next group. And in a way, the pandemic has been this incredible leveler. And even though I can't really compare apples to oranges, given that I was interviewing the US at a very different time to when I did my interviews in Australia, there was suddenly a sense of people showing up in a really, really different way, because we were all experiencing something that none of us had experienced before. And I honestly think that if we are to get the real juice of your leadership capability, it's incorporating all of that. It is incorporating cross-generation, gender, creed, language groups to get a really interesting and thought-provoking way of looking at things. And the one quote that I remember, and she was a phenomenal leader out of the US, I mean, just extraordinary woman. She said, I'm the only woman, and she's a senior woman, I'm the only woman on the executive team, which is, as she said, just shocking in itself. And I'm also the youngest person, and she's, well into Gen X. And we speak a lot about how do we land our business for next generations, yet they have nobody with that lens. And so there's a real calling to rethink. And I think no time like the present to go, who are you integrating into your leadership, into influential roles in your in leadership?
Yeah. And so, I love the concept of, and I hear from a lot of leaders who work with multi-generations is and diversity generally. Innovation comes from diversity, and you've got now this huge opportunity as the world opens up, because now people feel as if you can build teams globally. And I think hopefully in a few weeks' time, I've got someone coming on who has built a really incredible, diverse, global, multi-generational team. And if we don't embrace that, we're going to get left behind. I really believe that.
100%. And that the innovation piece, Rebecca, is such a key one. What we saw is just this deep acceleration of work processes and projects that were already in place, whether it was working from home and using video conference, and just this entire thing flipped on its head. And so we know we can do it really quickly. We know we can be deeply agile because we have to. And I think that, if we're thinking that the new normal is going to go back to what was, I'd say the genie is out of the bottle. It's out. And so instead of, as you say, fighting that or thinking we have the answers, I think that the form of great leadership is to know that answers sit everywhere. And it's really, how do you take them? How do you, conjure them out of your teams? And certainly in the conversations with folk in both countries, that becomes the gift of leadership.
Absolutely. I'm just going to acknowledge the people who have commented here online. Hi, Luke. Thank you for joining. We've got Denise Massinio. I feel like you must know Denise. Nigaraju. We've got Deborah Charalambidis. We've got a LinkedIn user, so I don't know who that is. Sometimes it comes up with without those. So thank you for letting us know you are there. I would love it if anyone has any questions or comments they'd like to add. I'd love to know your views on globalization and intergenerational leadership as part of that picture. Just back to you, Merle. Through, obviously you've done a lot of this research and it's been quite interesting, and you're still working through it. So all of there's still a lot of work to be done. Just going back to your own personal experience, have you had very many aha moments through your career where you've gone, that's one of the keys to good leadership. Are the things that have sort of happened in your own experience, or even in the conversations you've been having?
There have been multiple aha moments. I think that, as I say, when I think of the good fortune that I've had with leaders that have been by my side, that is something that I'm just deeply grateful for. What's been interesting, obviously in the conversations, there's a huge amount there. But I've realized that in my work at the moment, needing to have people in my corner, needing to have great leaders, pushing you, prodding you, supporting you. And the big ahas are, you can be talented, you can be skilled, you can be gifted. And if you do not know how to work your room in a genuine and generous way, you have a problem. And people will follow great leaders, they'll follow great people. And one of a highlight here of my research, I interviewed most of the millennials in the middle of the pandemic. And one of the things that came out, which is a great testament to their leadership, was how actually enthralled they were in the change in their leadership. The fact that their leaders were showing up vulnerably, exposed, human, they were genuinely interested in them. As a number of them said, we're being over-communicated to, not in a bad way, but in a really good way. Yep. And so those are some of, there are so many highlights. Those are just off the top of my head, some things that have come up.
Yeah. I've just noticed one of your past leaders come on board. So Steve Nola is there. Hi, Steve. Thanks for joining. And Steve, and thank you for introducing me to Merle. She's awesome. So Merle, just I from what you were just saying, there's a conversation I've been having throughout all of my conversations with people around this vulnerability element. And I think certain leaders, we're all on a growth journey, and I think we're all constantly learning and developing and changing, and it's the same in any relationship. When you start to change, people are kind of they sort of notice and perhaps feel a little maybe uncomfortable with it themselves to begin with, and then start to notice the value. And so from a leadership perspective, do you have any tips for leaders as to how they might overcome almost the fear of vulnerability, the fear of sort of making those changes? I suppose it's ultimately about the wins that you get when you do. And like you say, people want to trust and follow. And I'm back to the humans conversation again.
Yes. Yeah. So I think instead of looking at this huge elephant that I'm going to be vulnerable and I have to cry in front of people, it's really about showing up. That's actually the reality, that at some point you come in and vulnerability is really an exposure of who we are, and beginning really truthful conversations. And that first step, you don't even have to take a huge step, you just have to take one small step in terms of sharing. Lots of people have spoken about seeing their CEO with a baby. Somebody was telling me about a baby in a papoose because his wife had to do something and he's in the middle of a strategy session. So people have been entering your homes, so that has shifted deeply a dynamic. And I think, and it is one thing that I definitely want to bring up, Rebecca, about generalized anxiety. I've called this year the year of the sympathetic nervous system, which is our fight or flight response.
Yeah.
And it feels that has been a great leveler, that people have been anxious about lots of things. People have lost jobs, their partners have lost jobs, they're unsure of what this means, they've been scared physically, there's a bunch of stuff, social unrest. So that has been the start of people being able to share. I think if that's the starting point, you'll be fascinated at what actually happens at the end of it. As an aside, I saw that, do you know Calm, the meditation app?
Yeah.
I saw in the last day or so, it raised $75 million on a $2 billion. It's got it.
Right.
I mean,
Wow.
it's important.
Yeah.
I think something like 1 million people downloaded it in February of last year, by February 2019, to 4 million today. So.
Wow. That is extraordinary. I use it. I hadn't realised, but and so that's exciting in a sense that we've kind of almost been forced across that barrier that is allowing us to just shift the perspective. I know I work with a few leaders who have had to get comfortable with being uncomfortable in that sense, and it is a challenge. And it is just a question of, I think, acknowledging that, we're all human and that, as long as we get the outcomes we're trying to achieve, then, we can support one another along the way.
Yeah, we've spoken about, growth mindset. This is a growth mindset. It's very easy to talk about growth mindset for others. We need to all be a learning population. But actually, when you put in that, it's a very different experience, and hence the leveler. That we're really all navigating this with different lenses. Actually.
Yes, absolutely. I'm just checking. I'll just check over onto LinkedIn. There's lots of people who are here with us, so thank you for joining. Please do throw any questions that you have into the comment box, and we can answer those happily for you. And I'd love to know anyone else's perspective on intergenerational leadership. I think it's always good to be open to the various perspectives and start the conversation, as opposed to simply present the research. So it's it's kind of it's something I would love people to do. Hopefully people are there. They're just they're watching us, so we'll keep going. So in terms of I'm just going to stick to that intergenerational element again. What are the key things you think what are are you seeing many differences between younger and older leaders? What are the sort of key standout differences that you see?
So I think the couple of things that came out, certainly from the Australian piece of research, was the level of generalized anxiety with the younger cohort to the senior women. That actually shifted in the American conversation. And I think that part of that is the pandemic. I'm thinking of one particular woman who said, had you interviewed me 4 months ago, it would be a very different conversation.
Right. Yeah.
And so I think it upended our ability, or deep resilience. All of the folk that I was speaking to really did see themselves as slightly different a few months prior to where they are. So that actually shifted a little. It's interesting to talk about that the intergenerational stuff, because a number of the senior women spoke about the importance of understanding millennials. And that was certainly also seen in the Australian research. What shifted with young folk, particularly in the US, is suddenly, as people were talking in a very human way to them, lots of communication, lots of care, lots of interest, that suddenly wasn't on the radar screen. You are understanding me, so you don't need to understand me as something different. We are just human, and you are actually engaging that way. And that, I think, is a gift that organizations can perhaps take back when we go post-pandemic, because it's not going to go back to whatever was. It's that sense of, it's just beginning to really understand what's happening at that human level, rather than the generational understanding that's needed.
Yeah. So it's turning back on the human, not turning off the human. Yeah, it's so important. Now we do have a question here from Denise. Thank you, Denise. Where are you going with the research? In other words, how will the knowledge gained be shared? This is all fun and fascinating work, and the time is ripe.
So thank you, Denise, and hello, Denise. I used to work with Denise many years ago. I'm very happy to see you on here. Well, actually, it's now that the work begins, Denise, because I have to, for my sins, put together an academic article. And I will also be working with an American group called the Center for Applications of Psychological Type that are looking at more around the assessment. And as I said, we weren't going to delve into that today, putting together article around professional journals. So there is so much information. I mean, there's something like 350 or 400 hours of transcripts and interviews and focus groups and review groups. So there's a lot. And yes, I have to do some work.
And are you intending to continue and delve into other areas, or is this it for you, do you think?
I think I need to land some of this. That's important. And it might be that there's some more. A lot of the information is informing the intergenerational leadership work that myself and actually my supervisor, Dr. Heather Round, are doing. And we've been fortunate enough, and I can thank Steve for supporting me on that, to run a series of pilots in a technology business. And that has been amazing and uplifting, and I want to continue doing that. And I know that it's impactful and making a difference in the organizations. So I have to walk a fine line between, the rigors of academia and actually what I love, which is not so much the rigors of academia.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, we are already at 11:57. Time flies when you're engrossed. I always find that we get to the end and I've got 5 more questions. I have one other big question for you, and that is, if you could only share one piece of advice to upcoming leaders, and only one, what would that piece of advice be?
It's very unfair, one piece of advice. I'm going to use the words of Oscar Wilde. Be yourself. Everybody else is taken.
Yes.
You have to show up, and it doesn't matter what age you are. You are enough, and find that and do that generously, and that will serve you. That will serve you well.
Wonderful. That's fabulous. What a lovely thing to end on. Thank you. Thank you so much for joining. This has been wonderful. A really different take on things. So I love research, but I love it when someone else is conducting it. So I'm completely with you on the how big a project it is. It would just be overwhelming to me. So it's phenomenal that you've done it, and I think it's something that's really, really relevant. And like Denise has said, the time is absolutely right for it right now. So so look, someone's thanking you for your great words of advice there. Thank you to everyone who's joined us today. I would love to see you again next week. Next week, I actually don't have anyone lined up, so it will either be a surprise or it will be me, and we will be discussing different elements of leadership, and I think really talking about how we can, as leaders, how we can ready ourselves for the exciting 2021 that is ahead of us, because I think that the time now is to really embrace, reflect, and look forward to a better year next year for everybody. So wonderful. Everybody's saying thank you. So thank you again. I appreciate it. And I will throw to you're very welcome. Thanks for coming on. And I will throw to if I can work out how to do it, I will throw to the closing video. So thanks again. See you, everyone. Have a great day.
Thank you for joining us today. I'm so grateful you managed to take time out to spend with us. I hope you got some value from the conversation. And just a reminder, I will be here every Thursday at 11:30 talking to another fabulous leader and bringing you more great morsels and value and mentoring. So please do join me. And if there's anything you would like to talk about when it comes to attracting, developing, retaining high-performing teams, please reach out. I would love to have a conversation. If you would like a transcript of the session, please remember to leave me a message or get in touch, and I'll also produce a document which will have the key takeouts from today's session, so I can share that with you too. All right, thanks again. Have a fabulous day. I will see you next time.